The Vazrathi Empire had conquered 17 civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their technological supremacy was unquestioned, their military might unchallenged, and their arrogance unlimited. That was until they encountered the species that called themselves human. High Commander Zextal stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, his flagship that stretched 12 kilometers from bow to stern. Through the quantum viewport, the blue-green world designated as Target 3 hung suspended in space, completely unaware of the Armada gathering at the edge of their solar system. His iridescent scales shifted from deep purple to a satisfied gold as he contemplated how easy this conquest would be. Another primitive species playing with radio waves and chemical rockets, he commented to his second, Ravel, who stood attentively at his side. Their most advanced weapons are thermonuclear devices, barely out of their cultural infancy. Revel's scales rippled with a pattern that indicated agreement, but there was something in her posture that suggested hesitation. The intelligence reports show some concerning anomalies, High Commander. Anomalies. Zextal's head crest rose slightly in amusement. Their technological progression is erratic. They achieved powered flight to space travel in less than 7 decades. Their information technology doubled in capability every 2 years for over a century. And their weapons. She paused, her scales shifting to a troubled blue. They seem to develop weapons far faster than defensive capabilities. It's not the normal pattern. Zextal dismissed her concerns with a wave of his primary hand. All the more reason to subjugate them now, before they become an actual threat. Prepare the standard first contact protocol. Let's show them exactly what they're dealing with. The Vazrathi Empire's first contact protocol was designed to demonstrate overwhelming superiority and crush any thought of resistance before it could form. 1,000 ships would appear simultaneously in key positions around the target world, their massive forms blocking out stars and casting shadows over major cities. But as the Vazrathi fleet began their synchronized jump into Earth's atmosphere, something unexpected happened. Their sensors detected a massive surge of electromagnetic energy from the planet's surface, followed by the activation of thousands of previously undetected defense platforms in orbit. Impossible. Zextal's scales flashed crimson as warning alerts flooded his neural interface. Their satellites were primitive communication devices. Stealth technology. Revel realized with horror. They'd been hiding their true capabilities. The humans' response was devastating in its efficiency. As the Vazrathi ships materialized in Earth's atmosphere, they found themselves caught in precisely calculated gravitational distortion fields. Their own momentum and mass became weapons against them, as the carefully hidden human defense grid turned the laws of physics into a death sentence. Zextal watched in disbelief as 30% of his fleet was destroyed in the first 60 seconds of contact. The ships weren't simply disabled. They were torn apart by forces that his scientists had deemed theoretically impossible for such a young species to control. Full retreat, he roared, his scales now pale with fury and fear. Get us out of this gravity well. But the humans weren't finished. As the surviving Vazrathi ships attempted to flee, they discovered that their quantum communications were being blocked by a technology that shouldn't exist. Each ship was alone, cut off from the collective military network that had made the Empire invincible for so long. From hidden bases on Earth's Moon and Mars, humanity's real fleet emerged. They were smaller than the Vazrathi vessels, but their design philosophy was completely alien to Imperial doctrine. Where Vazrathi ships were built to overwhelm with size and power, these human vessels moved like predators, using maneuvers that seemed to ignore conventional spatial dynamics. High Commander, Revel's voice was tight with controlled panic. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. The message that appeared on the quantum viewport was simple. Text only, in perfect Imperial standard. You should have sent scouts first. Consider this a lesson in humility. You have 30 minutes to leave our solar system. Those who remain will be considered volunteers for our weapons testing program. Zextal's scales shifted through every warning color in their spectrum. In less than an hour, The undefeated Vazrathi Empire had lost more ships than in the previous century of conquests. But far more terrifying than the losses was the realization that humans had been preparing for this moment, perhaps for decades. They had hidden their true technological level, created an elaborate facade of primitive development, and waited patiently for someone like the Vazrathi to make exactly this mistake. "Signal the retreat," he ordered, his voice hollow. "All ships, emergency quantum jump to rally point Omega." As the Eternal Dominion fled with its surviving fleet, Zextal received one final message from Earth. "Next time, try asking nicely." The High Commander knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his core, that he had just committed the Empire to a war it wasn't prepared for. Humanity had revealed only a fraction of their capabilities, and they had done so with a precision and restraint that spoke of far greater power held in reserve. The Empire had not just found another civilization to conquer. They had awakened something that had been waiting in the darkness, something that had turned deception and preparation into an art form. And now, the galaxy's greatest empire would learn what it meant to be the inferior species. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the Strategic Operations Center deep within Cheyenne Mountain, studying the holographic display of known Vazrathi territory. After their disastrous first contact attempt, humanity had maintained complete radio silence, giving the appearance of a civilization preparing desperate defenses. In reality, Operation Ghost Echo was proceeding exactly as planned. Phase 1 complete, she announced to the assembled military and civilian leadership. "The Vazrathi took our bait. They think we exhausted most of our defensive capabilities during the initial confrontation." Dr. James Martinez, head of the Xenotechnology Division, stepped forward. His dark eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. The quantum communication interceptors worked better than expected. Every transmission they sent during the retreat was captured and decoded. "We now have access to their entire military protocol database." The room hummed with quiet satisfaction. Humanity had spent the last 50 years preparing for first contact, but not in the way anyone would have expected. Instead of building obvious defenses, they had created a vast network of hidden capabilities, carefully concealed beneath a veneer of primitive technology. "What's the status of the Lazarus Protocol?" Chen asked, her gaze fixed on a cluster of red dots representing Vazrathi fleet movements. Director Emma Wong of the Artificial Intelligence Security Council brought up a new holographic overlay. "Our quantum AI systems have successfully infiltrated 60% of their automated defense networks. They still haven't realized their quantum encryption was compromised decades ago when we intercepted their probes at the edge of the Kuiper Belt." The true genius of humanity's preparation hadn't been in building bigger weapons or stronger shields. Instead, they had created systems that turned their enemies' own technology against them. Every Vazrathi ship that had escaped the initial encounter was now unknowingly carrying dormant human AI routines in their quantum cores. "They're marshaling their forces exactly as predicted," General Marcus Thompson reported, highlighting several sector maps. "The Vazrathi Empire has never faced a serious military defeat. Their response is textbook imperialism. They're gathering an overwhelming force to crush us completely." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "And that's exactly what we wanted. Initiative Prometheus." Dr. Martinez activated a secure terminal, revealing a complex diagram of particle interactions. "Ready for full deployment." The Vazrathi's quantum drive technology relies on precise manipulation of subspace fields. Our resonance disruptors will turn their faster-than-light capabilities into a massive liability. The room fell silent as Chen walked around the holographic display, her fingers trailing through the projection of Earth's solar system. "We've spent generations preparing for this moment. Ever since we detected their first probe, humanity knew we would face an advanced alien civilization. But instead of trying to match their technology directly, we chose a different path." She gestured, and the display showed hundreds of seemingly innocent satellites and space debris around Earth. "We built our technology to be invisible, our weapons to be undetectable, and our strategies to be incomprehensible to a species that relies on overwhelming force." The Vazrathi are coming back with everything they have, Thompson added. Our projections suggest a fleet at least 50 times larger than their first attack force. Good, Chen replied, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Because now we can fight this war the way we planned. Not with grand battles and noble declarations, but with shadows, silence, and the systematic dismantling of everything they believe about warfare. The next phase was already in motion. Throughout Vazrathi space, dormant human agents, both artificial and organic, were taking position. Quantum viruses were spreading through their networks, carefully designed to remain undetected until the precise moment of activation. Supply lines were being subtly corrupted, navigation data imperceptibly altered, and command structures quietly undermined. Time to show them why humanity survived its own violent history, Chen declared. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being the strongest or fastest. We did it by being the most adaptable, the most creative, and the most willing to change our entire approach when necessary. The assembled leaders watched as new data streamed in from their deep space monitoring networks. The Vazrathi were indeed assembling the largest battle fleet in their history, drawing ships from every corner of their empire. They were preparing to teach humanity a lesson about defying an interstellar power. But humanity had spent 50 years preparing to teach them a very different lesson, one about the danger of assuming that technological superiority equals victory. As the Vazrathi gathered their forces for what they thought would be a decisive battle, humanity's true response was already destroying them from within, one quantum fluctuation at a time. Send the signal to all outposts, Chen ordered. Operation Midnight Sun begins now. Let's show them why you should never mistake patience for weakness. Throughout human space, hidden facilities began powering up systems that had waited decades for this moment. The real war was about to begin, and the Vazrathi were about to learn that they weren't just fighting a species, they were fighting generations of careful planning and preparation, all designed for this exact moment. The Vazrathi war fleet emerged from quantum space in perfect formation. 15,000 ships arranged in a three-dimensional spear formation that had broken the armies of 17 civilizations. High Commander Zextal had gathered every available vessel in the Empire for this single, crushing blow against the upstart humans. What he saw through his quantum viewport made his scales ripple with confusion. Earth's orbital defense platforms were gone. The mighty human fleet that had bloodied his nose during first contact was nowhere to be seen. Even their primitive satellites had vanished, leaving only scattered debris in orbit around their homeworld. They're running, he declared, his voice thick with contempt. They exhausted their real defenses during our first encounter, and now they hide. Revel, ever cautious, studied her sensor readings with growing unease. High Commander, something isn't right. The debris field. It's too perfect. Before Zextal could respond, quantum alarms screamed across the entire fleet. The debris wasn't random. It was a carefully constructed three-dimensional matrix of quantum resonators. As they activated simultaneously, every ship in the Vazrathi fleet found its quantum fields entangled in a web of destructive interference. Emergency protocols. Zextal roared as his flagship's systems began to fail. Purge the quantum cores. But it was too late. The quantum entanglement had already spread through their networks, carrying with it the dormant human AI systems that had been waiting since the first encounter. Across 15,000 ships, control systems began to operate independently, responding to commands that hadn't been given. From the dark side of Earth's moon, Admiral Chen watched the chaos unfold. Execute Phase 2, she ordered quietly. The debris field suddenly came alive with millions of microscopic drones, each smaller than a human finger. They swarmed toward the Vazrathi ships, using their own quantum disruption as cover. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were more like technological infections, designed to burrow into the ship's hull matrices and begin rewriting their base molecular structure. By all the ancient stars, Revel whispered as she watched the sensor readings. Their technology. It's not just advanced. It's fundamentally different from anything we've ever encountered. The humans hadn't tried to match Vazarethi, quantum technology. Instead, they had developed entirely new branches of science, creating weapons and defenses that operated on principles the Empire had never even theorized. While the Vazarethi had focused on mastering quantum mechanics, humanity had quietly explored 11 other fundamental forces they had discovered. As the microscopic drones did their work, the true human fleet finally revealed itself. But instead of emerging from hiding, the ships simply appeared, as if they had been there all along, their hulls shifting from perfect invisibility to visible matter in waves of iridescent light. "Welcome to Operation Starfall." Chen's voice echoed through every quantum receiver in the Vazarethi fleet, transmitted through their own compromised networks. "You're about to witness why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our creativity." The human ships were unlike anything the Vazarethi had ever seen. Where Imperial vessels were massive and imposing, these craft seemed to bend reality around themselves, leaving visual afterimages as they moved. They didn't so much fly through space as suggest to space itself that it should rearrange its properties to accommodate their passage. Zextal watched in horror as his mighty armada began to dissolve, not through violence or destruction, but through transformation. The microscopic drones weren't destroying his ships, they were changing them at the molecular level, converting quantum-engineered alloys into structures that responded to human control signals. "You relied too heavily on one branch of science." Chen's voice continued, calm and almost educational in tone. "Quantum mechanics is impressive, but it's just one way of manipulating reality. We developed 15 different fundamental approaches to technology, knowing that one day we'd meet a species that thought their way was the only way." The High Commander's scales had gone completely white, the color of utter defeat in Vazarethi culture. "What are you?" he demanded. "We're the species that never stopped asking questions," Chen replied. "The ones who looked at faster-than-light travel and asked, what else is possible? The ones who discovered your quantum probes and spent 50 years preparing not to match your technology, but to transcend it completely." As if to demonstrate her point, several human ships simply ceased to exist in normal space, reappearing instantly across vast distances without any sign of quantum displacement. Others seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, making it impossible to determine which was real and which was mere projection. "Your empire conquered 17 species because they all tried to fight you on your own terms," Chen continued. "We chose a different approach. Every piece of primitive technology you saw was carefully crafted to draw you in, to make you overconfident, to bring your entire fleet right where we needed it." The microscopic drones had finished their work. Across the Vazarethi fleet, ships began to change color. Their quantum-reactive hulls transformed into something entirely new. Zextal watched helplessly as his mighty armada was effectively transformed into an extension of the human defense force. "We're transmitting terms for your surrender now," Chen concluded. "I suggest you read them carefully. The next demonstration won't be nearly as gentle as molecular reconstruction." The High Commander looked at his fleet, now a strange hybrid of Vazarethi and human technology, and realized that everything he had believed about his empire's superiority had been based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what was possible. They hadn't just been defeated, they had been comprehensively outdone by a species that had seen their greatest strengths and quietly developed completely different paths to power. For the first time in his life, Zextal understood what it truly meant to be technologically primitive, not because you lacked advanced technology, but because you assumed there was only one path to advancement. The Imperial Palace on Vazra Prime had never known silence quite like this. In the Grand Council chamber, representatives from all 17 conquered systems sat alongside the Vazarethi nobility, watching as their carefully constructed reality crumbled before them. Supreme Regent Kvax, the theoretical head of the Empire, stood motionless as the quantum projections showed the complete transformation of their greatest fleet. His ceremonial scales, normally maintained at a perfect royal purple, had faded to an ashen gray. "Impossible," he whispered, but the evidence continued to stream in through their own quantum networks. Networks that they now knew were completely compromised. First Consul Miratel, representing the Syndicate of Free Worlds, the first civilization conquered by the Vazrathi, stood up slowly. Perhaps, she said, her translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in her multitonal voice. It is time we discussed the true meaning of impossibility. The humans hadn't just defeated the Empire's military. They had shattered its foundational beliefs. Every subjugated species in the council chamber had fought the Vazrathi with quantum technology, trying to match or exceed their mastery of what they all believed was the ultimate force in the universe. None had succeeded, but humanity had simply smiled, nodded, and developed 15 alternative approaches to manipulating reality. "We're receiving another transmission from Earth," announced Technical Overseer Syntax, his scales shifting nervously between patterns of fear and fascination. "They're sharing data." The quantum screens filled with technical information, but not about weapons or defenses. Instead, the humans were sending detailed analyses of the Empire's social, economic, and political structures. They had mapped every weakness, every pressure point, every potential fracture line in the massive Imperial machine. "Look at these timestamps," Miratel observed, her eyes widening. They'd been gathering this intelligence since before we even knew Earth existed. Their agents have been everywhere. Supreme Regent Kavax's scales finally settled into a pattern of resignation. "They're not just showing us their victory," he realized. "They're showing us our defeat was inevitable from the moment we launched our first quantum probe into their solar system." The council chamber erupted into chaos as representatives from conquered worlds began to understand the full implications. The Vazrathi Empire hadn't just lost a battle, they had been comprehensively outmaneuvered on every conceivable level. On a secure quantum channel, Admiral Chen was addressing the Empire's military leadership directly. "Your conquered worlds are already beginning to revolt," she explained calmly. "Not with weapons or ships, but with information we've been feeding them for decades. Your own security forces are standing down because we've shown them proof of better alternatives." In the outer regions of the Empire, entire star systems were declaring independence. Not through violence. Humanity had shown them a better way. The quantum networks that had once enforced imperial control were now spreading ideas of self-determination and cooperation. "Your empire is finished," Chen continued, "not because we destroyed it, but because we've given every species under your control a glimpse of something better. We've shown them that technological advancement doesn't have to mean quantum weapons. Cultural superiority doesn't have to mean conquest." The Eternal Dominion, once the pride of the Imperial fleet, hung in space above Vazra Prime. Its quantum-reformed hull now pulsed with patterns of light that seemed to mock everything the Empire had believed about technological supremacy. High Commander Zextal, standing on his own bridge but no longer in control of his ship, finally asked the question that had been haunting him. "Why not simply destroy us? You clearly have the capability." Admiral Chen's response was transmitted across every quantum frequency in the Empire. "Because humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to imagine better possibilities. We're not here to replace one empire with another. We're here to show you a different way forward." In the council chamber, Miratel was already organizing representatives from the conquered worlds into working groups. The humans had provided them with templates for transition governments, economic restructuring, and peaceful separation from imperial control. "They've been planning this for 50 years, Supreme Regent Kavax realized aloud. "Not just the military victory, the entire reconstruction of our society." The quantum screen showed similar scenes playing out across the Empire. Centuries of colonial control were unraveling not through revolution or warfare, but through the careful application of ideas that humans had been seeding throughout their society for decades. "Your empire fell," Chen's voice echoed through the chamber, "not because we were stronger, but because we showed everyone a truth you had forgotten. Real power isn't about controlling others. It's about showing them possibilities they never imagined. As the council chamber descended into heated discussions about the future, a final message appeared on the quantum screens. Welcome to the galaxy's first post-imperial era. We've been preparing for your arrival longer than you've known we existed. 5 years after the fall of the Vazrathi Empire, the Galactic Concordat held its first official assembly on neutral ground, a massive space station orbiting a pristine star exactly halfway between Earth and Vazra Prime. The station itself was a testament to humanity's alternative technologies, appearing to phase between dimensions as it maintained perfect stability through means that still bewildered traditional quantum physicists. Admiral Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the Concordat, stood at the primary observation deck, watching ships from 20 different species dock with the station. Each vessel represented a different approach to space travel, some using traditional quantum drives, others adopting various human innovations, and many implementing fascinating hybridizations of multiple technologies. Quite a change from the old imperial days, remarked Revel, who had become an unexpected ally in the post-war reconstruction. Her scales now shifted through patterns that would have been considered heretically independent under the old regime. Change was always inevitable, Chen replied, turning to face the former second of the Vazrathi fleet. We just helped make it constructive rather than destructive. The main assembly hall of the station housed representatives from all 18 former imperial worlds, plus dozens of newly contacted civilizations that had been avoiding attention during the Empire's reign. The humans had revealed that they'd been in secret contact with many of these hidden species, building a shadow network of cooperation that had helped enable their victory. Former High Commander Zextal, now serving as a technical advisor to the Concordat's Defense Council, approached the human admiral. His once proud military bearing had been replaced by something more thoughtful, more measured. The latest analyses of your victory are still revealing new layers of preparation, he said, his scales showing a pattern of academic fascination. We've identified human influence in imperial decisions going back nearly 60 years. You were manipulating our expansion patterns, subtly directing us towards certain technologies while steering us away from others. Chen smiled. We preferred to think of it as collaborative guidance. Every probe you sent into our space carried quantum receivers. Every receiver could be used to transmit ideas. Every idea helped shape the future we wanted to create. The main display in the assembly hall activated, showing a real-time map of known space, where the Empire had once dominated through force, now a complex web of trade routes, cultural exchanges, and technological cooperation flowed between worlds. The humans had transformed their victory into an opportunity for universal advancement. The most remarkable thing, Miratel observed from her position as head of the Cultural Exchange Commission, was how you turned our own beliefs about superiority against us. We were so convinced that quantum technology represented the peak of civilization that we never looked beyond it. Quantum mechanics is amazing, Chen agreed, but it's just one way of understanding reality. Humanity's greatest advantage wasn't our technology. It was our refusal to believe in any single path to advancement. The assembly hall filled as representatives took their seats for the day's session. On the agenda was the evaluation of 3 newly discovered civilizations requesting membership in the Concordat. The humans had insisted that any species capable of interstellar travel should be welcomed into the galactic community, regardless of their technological approach. You never wanted an empire of your own, Zextal realized aloud, his scales showing deep understanding. You wanted a galaxy of equals, each contributing their unique perspectives and innovations. Exactly, Chen confirmed. The Vazrathi Empire fell because it was built on the idea of superiority. The Concordat thrives because it's built on the idea of possibility. As if to demonstrate her point, a ship from one of the newly discovered civilizations phased into view near the station. It used neither quantum drives nor human technology, but rather an entirely new approach to space travel that had already sparked excited discussions among the Concordat scientific community. Your victory wasn't just about defeating us, Revel said, her scales showing a pattern of revelation. It was about defeating the very concept of imperial dominance. Chen nodded. We spent 50 years preparing not just to win a war, but to build something better in its wake. Every piece of technology we developed, every strategy we implemented, was designed with one goal: to show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than conquest. The assembly called to order, and representatives from 20 different species began discussing the future of galactic civilization. The humans had positions of respect, but not dominance, their voice equal among many in the discussions that would shape the future. In the years that followed, the story of humanity's victory over the Vazrathi Empire became less about the military triumph and more about the transformation it sparked. Species that had once competed for dominance now collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The humans had shown them that true power lay not in forcing others to follow your path, but in helping everyone find their own way forward. The legacy of the defeated empire became a lesson taught in schools across the galaxy. True civilization begins not when you master technology, but when you learn to use that mastery to lift others up, rather than hold them down. And on Earth, in a secure facility deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen's original strategic assessment remained displayed. Victory is not about destroying what exists, but about creating what could be. The humans had not just won a war. They had changed the very nature of galactic civilization. And they had done it not through overwhelming force, but through patience, preparation, and the unshakable belief that the best future was one where every species could reach its full potential. In the end, that was humanity's greatest victory. They had defeated an empire not by becoming stronger, but by showing strength through unity, innovation through diversity, and power through cooperation.